Today, we're going to take a look at modern web design in 2025. First up, we have hypercolors. This type of modern web design utilizes more color in its design aesthetic. These colors end up being a lot more saturated, but create a more vibrant design that looks young and fresh. For example, in this design by Maggie, you can see the use of very saturated background colors which can be balanced out with more bolder and darker text. Even the interactive elements which you can drag around are utilizing hypercolors, like this banana which is quite yellow. The text itself has a lot more shade so it can stand out, and that way it incentivizes people to read what's on the screen, but there's also always nice interactions and animations happening in the background too. Pomegranate is another website which uses hypercolors quite well. You can see this in its menus, borders, and buttons, which use these strong pinks to create call to actions and elements that the user wants to view. The app is about healthcare, and even its UI design for the apps uses a lot of hypercolors as well as graphics that are looking a lot more modern as well as friendly. This sort of approach ends up making the app feel a lot easier to get into for a scary subject like healthcare to make it seem a little bit more approachable. One more example of hypercolors is by DNL, a social media company which uses these strong vibrant colors, as well as this carousel which has videos that play in the background when you hover. One more thing that DNL does is change the background color as you scroll from section to section, and this actually creates a transition that looks seamless and also makes each section feel unique and independent. So if you want to use hypercolors in your own design, take inspiration from these examples. Apply the colors to the background, have contrasting text that stands out, and don't overuse hypercolor. Make sure it just blends in with the design aesthetic rather than trying to add too much. Gen Z design is our next modern design aesthetic, and it's not hard to see what makes it unique. The younger generation of web designers are trying to create their own place in modern web design, and this is the aesthetic that I'm often seeing happen on websites, where it borrows a lot of elements from things like brutalism, as well as artwork with overlapping elements, typography that is unique and independent, and trying to combine all these different varied elements all in the same place. I never truly know what I'll get when I click on different elements or scroll through different pages, but it definitely does leave an impression. I have this example here from Red Circle, and what makes this a Gen Z website are all the overlapping elements which we just wouldn't see in traditional web design. You can see that here with this image where the text is kind of both inside and outside of it, or this feature card where the image is actually blocked out by a hover card. All of these design elements aren't things we traditionally see, and yet they're unique and expressive in their own way. Like this example here from WaxiWeb. Instead of a hero image, it has this carousel, and even the hero text is a mix of different types of typographies. Each section has a different height and feels like it's almost been cut out of the page, and the hover effects and animations are also unique and interesting in their own way too. Or how these images here are connected by sticky notes. Even these buttons or links, I'm not quite sure what they are, but I know they're clickable. This last example of Gen Z design might not look like it at first glance, but as you keep scrolling through, you start to see these elements which don't adhere to modern design aesthetics. And while this sounds contrary to what we're looking for, this is what's becoming a modern web design. For example, in this feature section, we have images that play a video in the background when you hover over. And there's also this floating button so that you know that when you select to click this image, it's going to take you to view the case study. This is a great way of functionality that we already know behaves normally in modern web design, but visually represented in a way that I haven't seen before. The footer is unique too, looking more like a table of contents from a book rather than a footer of a traditional website. Our next style is full screen video, and there's a really cool example here from Athletics, a brand and innovation studio. They have a full screen video inside of a 3D letter A that rotates, and as you scroll in, you get to see the full screen video, and it is vibrant and catchy, and definitely draws attention. The next part of the website still uses videos and transitions all over the place, such as these ones here over the case studies, and all of these are still videos that are constantly playing and utilizing most of the screen real estate. Since users now have access to a lot more bandwidth to download resources from the web, modern websites now are utilizing a lot more video content throughout the website design, like in this example. And you can really see that to be true in this example from Slaps, where they're using really high quality videos for almost their entire entire website. This makes for a very bold case study since you're actually showing the kind of work that you produce directly as soon as a user visits their website. And their motto is that their content slaps. You can see that through their examples here. Most of their videos look high quality. You can really see the aesthetic of each one being unique and diverse, as well as just how cool some of the animations and sequences are. If I ever plan on filming my own commercial, I'll definitely be using these guys. Here's another example from a creative company that does a lot of video production. Here they start off with a very simple introduction, and as you scroll through you get to see some of their video content in full screen. Instead of a full screen carousel, you have these full screen videos which play and loop through. Also, the mouse cursor has this really cool effect as I hover over different elements. I think the trick with full screen videos is that they have to be engaging. A lot of these videos work because they have the right elements in the right place. They have emotion and expression and action, and you definitely want to actually watch the whole thing through since they're so unique and interesting. Bonus part: how to build your own modern web design. For this, I'll be using Wix Studio, a no-code platform I've been using for the last number of years to create websites from the ground up. What makes my life a little bit easier are the Studio templates, since there's lots of modern designs here available for me to use and customize. I really like these new ones which are inspirational designs based on things like animals in motion, or this one here of an astronaut in space. What I'm gonna do is select this one here for a construction company, since I like the moving elements and colors. But I want to get rid of this black background, which is a static image, and use a full screen video instead, just to make it a little bit more engaging. First, I'll select the image and simply select delete to remove it. And then for the background here, which has a little bit of a gradient, I'll make this disappear. And instead of this gradient, I'm going to use a background video. Here, I already have options from things like media from Wix or Shutterstock. So I'll filter just for videos and select one that I like. With this done, I can head to the top right to preview what the new website design looks like, see what the video looks like in motion, and once I'm happy with the results, I can select publish on the top right and have the website online in a matter of seconds. If I need to make changes down the track, it's simply easy to double click and edit elements rather than rewrite code from scratch. And there's a really cool feature called responsive design using AI that I definitely think people should try, where it allows AI to write up the responsive code for different viewports for you. The next feature I see in modern web design is the use of mouse interaction, and you often see this in websites where the mouse has some sort of an event happening in the background while you're interacting with the page. Traditionally, we're used to very simple interactions, things like hover effects on images where it maybe fades in a little bit or zooms in. However, it seems more modern now that interactions where images are being adapted to where the position of the mouse is becoming more commonplace. I especially like this example here from Airborne, which uses high resolution graphics that follow the mouse cursor in this responsive, bouncy way. This is an example of mouse interactions taken to another level. Of course, you can do simple things like having interactions with text elements to add really cool effects like this. Here's another cool example of that from Wix Studios. Small previews of case studies follow the mouse as you move about, but it never interacts with the actual text in the middle. It's only around the sides, which is great UX. And as you scroll through the page, you basically get this seamless transition where the background changes, and so do the case study example previews with the mouse interaction, and this just looks beautiful. Next is scroll design. This is something I'm seeing where the implementation of scroll is part of the design aesthetic. Implementations of this might use horizontal scroll instead of vertical scroll, or you might do a bit of both. It might have animation sequences tied to scroll events, where the more you scroll through a page, the more elements change in that page. It might be as subtle as adding parallax to a photo, or having a fixed background with elements moving into the frame. This next example from Sun has a few good implementations of scroll design, including having a text element in the middle while visual elements in the background are transitioning through, or having a page transition where the background changes while the text in the middle stays the same, almost like a fixed image background. I also like this image swap as the background sections change as well. Scroll design used to be pretty simple, just maybe some parallax or something. But these days websites are being quite creative when it comes to different types of sequences they can implement as part of mouse interactions and scroll interactions. So don't be surprised when you see modern web designs have a combination of text elements, images, and hover effects flying through the screen as you scroll through it. 3D websites are becoming a lot more modern, and I've seen a few really interesting examples, like this one here from Terminal, which is a 3D truck that is also connected to the scroll event of the mouse. For a logistics company, this definitely feels like they have state-of-the-art technology and they know what they're doing. Creating novel 3D websites isn't that hard. You just have to experiment with different ways you can utilize stylized 3D elements in the space of a 2D website browser. Here, for example, this creative company has this 3D cube with their case studies orbiting around the cube. One more thing that I really liked from this website design was their footer, where they had their team section, and when you hover over different elements, you have that team member dancing. Another example of 3D use is in the website from Bottomax. In this example, they've got this stylized 3D Game Boy, which is pretty cool, as well as some mouse effects happening in the hero section. When you scroll through different sections, you have other 3D elements. I like how they've represented their collaborations with things like Spotify with a headset, or with Google with this 3D web browser. And the footer with the text saying reach out is literally a hand reaching out. Even their page transitions have this really cool 3D effect where the page skews almost as if you're zooming into the next section or zooming out. It's usually things like this that I enjoy seeing. Things where they're utilizing a 3D effect in new and creative ways to bring to life a website with its own artistic style. So next time you're thinking of adding 3D elements to your page, consider things like adding 3D elements that scroll along with you when you go through different sections of the website. Having the animation of it appear to change as you go through each section, and having it also be part of the website design in a way that is creative and fun.